This is Nick Fuentes on Piers Morgan. He is a Hitler-loving, Sieg-heiling Nazi. Let's give it a listen.
I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. Maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare.
That's crazy, dude. I had no idea. I did not realize that his dad was so violently racist. That is nuts, dude.
And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question...
Look, he's laughing. He's smiling. He thinks it's funny. He likes it. This is good to him. We hear that shit about his dad, and we're like, what the fuck? His dad was violently hateful and racist. Why would you not... You want black people to fail then, right? That's the only explanation. I don't understand. Like, what other reason would he have for not going to a black-owned business? Who cares if the business owner is black? Why does this matter to you at all? I don't understand. You just want black people to fail. That's it. You just want them to fail, right? How else am I supposed to interpret this? Just evil, dude. Really, evil. It is evil. Miracle says, who cares? If food is good, who gives a shit about race? Just want yummy stuff in my face, please. Yeah. The only reason the dad could have had to say, we will not patronize a black business is because he wants to see black people fail. That's it. There is no other reason for that, right? I want to see black people fail. That is disturbing as shit. And Nick Fuentes is sitting here smiling away. Cheesing, if you will, because I guess it brings back fond memories. He likes it. He agrees with it. He enjoys the thought of making black people fail. Like, what the f*** is wrong with this dude? Seriously, like, it's more than just, wow, he's a Nazi. He is straight up evil. He is straight up evil with some of the shit that he seems to believe.
Based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, do you think you grew up in a racist environment?
He absolutely, obviously did. And he calls himself racist.
That your father was inherently racist and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's
not what's happening. That's not what we're saying. People are literally talking about shit that you said, stories you told on your channel, and it's horrifying. These aren't anecdotes. This is what you told us, and you smiled as he recounted the stories. What am I supposed to do with this, Nick? Like, seriously.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'm
not trying to ambush you. As I said,
this is piss poor, dude, really. This is such a cop-out, a bullshit cop-out that he's laying down for us right now. Disgusting.
So, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think everybody
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans.
And he smiled while it was recounted. I'm not sure that he expected that story to come out.
In that instance, permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist. And
Okay, yes, he is. If that story that you told us is real, then yes, he is. Is your father a racist or are you a liar? Which one?
they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school.
I don't want to hear about your parents, Nick. I want to hear about that specific incident. It's pretty clear that was real, right? Or he wouldn't have smiled all through it and he wouldn't refuse to engage with this. He would have just said, no, that's absolutely not real. He did not say that. That's fake. Instead, he's saying my father is not a racist. Clear as day, his father is a racist, right?
In Chicago, in the South Loop, where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually...
Oh, okay. Who gives a fuck? Wow, black people know how to use guns. Does that scare you for some reason? Why would that scare you?
One of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so,
okay, I don't understand. What the fuck are you talking about? What does this have to do with the fact that your dad is fucking racist? How is this connected to that? I don't understand. You got gummy bears in your ears? You were like, did you not hear the question?
my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, and the West Side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people.
And is that why you refused to go to Applebee's because it was a black-owned business, because you want to see black people fail? You're not being cautious about specific, particular black people that you think are dangerous or should be avoided, bad people in your neighborhood. That's not what you're doing. You are trying to make all black people fail.
And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very...
Oh, it's a young kid thing, right? It's just the young black people that are fuck-ups and failures. Is that it? Is that what it is, Nick?
Decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become...
What does that mean, no accountability? Exactly. What do you mean by that? What could that possibly mean? No accountability in what way? You think that criminals are just like committing crimes and just getting away with it? Is that what it is? What is it? He's looking for reasons to be a racist shit. And he seems to have found some. Just made them up whole cloth.
Become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people.
Wow, look at you.
People there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time believing literally a word out of his mouth. But either way, he's about to address this. He's about to say, I know there are a lot of good black people, but I bet he's going to say there are a lot of bad black people too, and you never know which is which. The fact is, the black community has a higher crime rate in some things, depending on the area, depending on the crime or whatever. Obviously not because of some genetic condition or whatever. I'm sure I don't need to say that, but I'm going to anyway. But because of conditions around them, because of the fact that they don't have any generational wealth, they haven't had generational wealth this whole time, because of the oppression that's existed, and not every black person is a criminal. You see a slightly higher statistic. In fact, almost nobody is a criminal in the United States. Almost nobody. It is such a small percentage. The vast majority of people you come across, black or white or whatever, are not going to be criminals. But you see a slightly elevated percentage in certain categories, and you assume that everybody from this demographic is a criminal.
that feel the same way about this. They say we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days.
Disgusting.
And so, again, I think those attitudes,
like, I'm not ashamed of Nick Fuentes because he's white and I'm white. There is no collective guilt or responsibility like that. Why does Fuentes suddenly think that collective guilt should exist in this one scenario, but doesn't think collective guilt should exist in other scenarios?
Say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Oh, no, not the same?
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems.
You have Aladdin.
Yeah. Oh my God. You have knife and sword problems. Oh, I wonder how many people die to knives and guns compared to how many people die to knives and swords compared to how many die to guns in the U.S.? Do you think it's a higher number or a lower number, I wonder? I guess we'll never know, will we? There's no way we can ever figure out what that number is. Seriously, like guns, when pointed at somebody, murder them en masse. They are sticks that, when pointed at people, murder them. Knives are utensils used for other things and cannot mass murder the way that guns do. I cannot believe that he chose to even go down this road. That's fucking absurd.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point...
He absolutely implied it.
Point about the environment. I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, which, just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
Yeah, because you didn't address it, dumbass.
You haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay. So when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist.
He should have played it. He should have showed him saying those words. That would have trapped him a lot more effectively.
Right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, no. Well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father...
No. I mean, I think we would all just like to know if you were lying then or you're lying now. That's all. Were you lying then or are you lying now?
No, I'm literally reading out.
Because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on. Can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah. Said in jest. It was a joke. You told this whole fake story that wasn't real, that never happened, that didn't exist, that portrays your father as a vile, racist scumbag. And it was said in jest. It was just a joke. You didn't actually mean it all along. It was fake. Okay, that makes sense. Totally.
It was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is...
Boy, that anecdote is so humorous, right? OMG. I love that anecdote.
His parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come... Well, you're a boomer, I guess, too. In a way,
60.
right? You were born
I'm
at
60.
19. Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the...
What does him being old have to do with literally anything? Why are you even talking about that? I don't understand. Is he saying he's old so he doesn't understand jokes? Is that what it is? See, this is God, Fuentes is such a vile sack of shit, dude, really. He's straight up evil.
Attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks.
Buckle up.
Just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Like I said, the vast majority of criminal activity is done by a very small subset of the population. Almost nobody is criminals in the United States. Every now and then you come across, somebody who is a criminal, and some demographics have higher rates of criminality than other demographics solely because of the conditions that they live in. It's not genetic, and that's the only other option. It's either genetic or it's a product of their environment, right? And humans are not genetically different enough for a predisposition to crime to exist in that way. It's just a product of the environment. And if that's the case, it can be fixed. We can work on that. We can do reparations. We can do jobs programs. Another leading indicator of crime or criminal activity is poverty. So get people out of poverty and you will reduce crime dramatically. It really is simple when you look at it. Fuentes said it's simple. Yes, he's right. It's simple. Fuentes is trying to demonize people and make them out to be evil, dangerous monsters when the fact is they aren't. If you want to reduce if you want to reduce crime, reduce poverty.
Okay. Would you like to...
Oh, yeah, and the Jews are not pulling strings like puppet masters, obviously.
Clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe...
Let's fact check this. I don't think that this is accurate. But either way, again, it's not everybody that you come across. What is that percentage anyway? 1 in 20 sounds really high, but it's really not. That's 5%. Black population is approximately 47 million people. If 5% committed a murder, that means 2.35 million black murderers. That's not what the data shows, not even close, apparently. What is it? Hold on, I'm just reading through. Even using the most uncharitable calculation possible, if you took every homicide with a black offender over a 40-year period and pretended they were all different people, they're not, since repeat offenders exist, you'd get maybe 250,000 to 300,000 total, not 2.5 million or so. That's still roughly 0.6% over 4 decades, not 5%. The actual data shows that the vast majority of any demographic group never commits any violent crime. Homicide offending is concentrated among a tiny fraction of any population. Most homicides involve people who know each other, often connected to specific circumstances like domestic violence or disputes. That's a textbook example of fabricating a shocking statistic and fundamentally misrepresenting data. So that's just nonsense.
Let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
That's just a lie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You
the
just said
crime problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
And now he's going to say, oh, you're splitting hairs. You are twisting data and lying about it. And you straight up said black people, for the most part, need to be in prison.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny, or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of...
I've had a problem generally with the term gentrification. And I looked into it because I want to understand, like, what is gentrification and is it really bad? Because to my mind, gentrification is just fixing up a neighborhood, right? It's just fixing up a neighborhood. What's bad about that? It seems like a good thing on the surface. So I do a little bit of digging to figure out what the bad part of gentrification is. Fixing up the neighborhood is not the problem. The problem is that if you're unfamiliar, gentrification is when people come in and invest a bunch of money into like fixing the roads and the bridges and cleaning up the infrastructure and building like new businesses and things like that in old rundown areas, old rundown neighborhoods that were beat up. And it ends up pricing out the old tenants so they can no longer afford to live there. And that is a point of contention for a lot of people. So what's the real problem with it? The real problem is that once businesses start moving in, suddenly, there's somebody yelling outside my window. Suddenly, people find the money to repair the roads. And suddenly, the state can find funds to fund education better and things like that. When there are businesses involved, when people are going to make money from this, suddenly they care about the populace, but they didn't care about it before. When people were suffering, they didn't care enough to put money into improving education in the neighborhood and things like that. That's the problem with gentrification at the end of the day. So back to what Fuentes was saying here.
And leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was
people leave to other neighborhoods because they're mistreated terribly because the neighborhood is neglected terribly by the city because nobody wants to make it better. Nobody cares about it. When the city could put just a little bit of money into investing in these neighborhoods and make them significantly better and improve people's lives dramatically. Instead, they're sending police in there to beat the shit out of people, mistreat them, make their lives miserable, instead of actually improving education and conditions generally.
But just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 0.5 at absolute best, but he said 5%. I just created a new website, firesidewatch.com. You can watch videos with friends, and everybody can play or pause the video. I made it so I could collaborate with other YouTubers, but I figured I might as well make it available to everybody. On top of that, you can add videos to the queue, upvote them, and sort by most upvoted. Give it a look, firesidewatch.com. And while you're at it, check out my Patreon, owenmorgan.com/Patreon. You can follow me there for free.
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
Your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you.
Who the fuck is that? And why the fuck do I care what they have to say about this subject?
But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
It's really not anywhere near what you're portraying. Again, at best, it's 0.5%.
this is
A
a
lot
real
of white
problem.
people commit murder too.
I wouldn't have gone down that road because I believe that he picked this statistic because it's higher with black people. I mean, why murder rate very specifically? Why that figure? Because it's higher for black people than white people, because of the conditions that they live in, because of the environment, because the government has completely abandoned them, because we aren't trying to improve their neighborhoods or anything. So he picked that specifically and intentionally. I probably would have said,
About a year ago, it said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers.
I probably would have focused on the fact that almost nobody that you come across is going to be dangerous. And you need to start with a clean slate with everybody. Maybe that's what I would have done.
I mean,
Sure,
this is
a
a
lot
real
of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%.
Yeah, but you're much more likely to be like attacked or hurt by white men, especially. Yeah, you know what? That's what I would have focused on, men. Men are something like 800% more likely to be dangerous to you than women. 800%, 800, not 8%, not 80%, 800% more likely to be dangerous, to commit a violent crime. Men. So does Nick Fuentes carry pepper spray around everywhere he goes, ready to pepper spray like every man that he meets? No, because you assume that the man that you're working with right now isn't going to be a violent criminal.
And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
What's with the
shootings.
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Oh, fuck you, God.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence.
Actually, it's not that. It's because the cities don't tend to give a fuck about the black neighborhoods. They don't invest in black neighborhoods, education or roads or bridges or infrastructure or anything else, literally anything else. They don't give a fuck about the black neighborhoods, and no one wants to live in those because the city has neglected them and it's led to a complete mess. That's why.
And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's
Daniel Penny did not have to deal with that the way that he did, certainly. This is a subject that's close to my heart because I am like from Manhattan. I lived there for years until very recently. And, you know, I've dealt with weird little nutcases on the subway as well. I have. And it's not comfortable. It's not something you want to deal with. I didn't like it either. And I don't blame him for trying to incapacitate the guy. But Daniel Penny didn't just incapacitate the guy. He murdered the guy. He continued holding onto the guy's neck in a sleeper hold, which will kill somebody, which did kill the guy, long past when it's safe, and he killed him as a result. Even though, to my understanding, passengers were saying, let go of him, stop it. He continued to hold on to his throat, and it led to his death. Unacceptable.
just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry.
Look at his smile, bottom right corner. He's smiling. He's laughing. He thinks this is funny. He enjoys it. He wants more of it. This is who Nick Fuentes is. He's proud of this. Disgusting.
You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
He must have gotten the same clip I did because mine cuts off at that exact spot as well.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, that wasn't a joke. He said it deadpan, right?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically sure.
My father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody, the difference is you're attacking my father. He could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
He could get fired from his job. That's what you care about, huh? He could get fired from his job. Okay.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all. Well,
then let's leave him out of it.
He should be fired from his job if he's a vile, hateful fucking racist like that.
Leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like.
But that's not what he said, right?
The idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on...
Good. He should be fired from it. If he's public facing, if he's customer facing, he should not work at that job. I'm sorry. And besides that, Nick, you can help your father. He's fine, I'm sure. I don't worry about his well-being. So go fuck yourself.
Here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist. You're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views. And I think that, so let's leave him out.
Oh, suddenly you can't handle the heat, huh? Well, get the fuck out of the kitchen if you can't handle the heat. You brought him into this. You brought all of this up. Well, now I know what to focus on. Now I know what bothers Nick Fuentes, so there's that. He knows what bothers me, vile, hateful fucking racism. Now I know what bothers him, right? This dude is truly evil.
Out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk? Okay, listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words.
With your own words. Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that.
Oh, my God. See, you're saying he's not a real journalist now. I mean, I agree. Piers Morgan is a complete fucking scumbag. But you're using that as a defense here, and that's kind of complete bullshit.
I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism. Let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist. Correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank
so I want
you.
to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely.
Again, this is predicated on the idea that black people are all dangerous, when the reality is the vast majority of people that you meet are not going to commit crimes. And if you really cared about a demographic of people being dangerous or whatever, you would avoid men like the plague, because men are 8 to 900% more likely, or 8 or 9 times more likely to commit a violent crime than women. So every time you see a man, you should run the other way for your own safety. If you're following if you're following your own logic and not just doing this because you're a vile racist shit. But we all know it's because you're a vile racist shit, of course. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm playing a 3DS game right now. It's a 3DS game, and I'm super proud of it because basically, this is a completely unrelated note. I spent an incredible amount of time and effort working on this over the past week or two. I have this 3DS with a capture card. It's an optimized capture card. I've had it for a while. And putting a capture card in a 3DS is very difficult. I didn't do it. I had somebody else do it. But basically, optimized cards are not fully, they're supported by a company called Optimize, where they produce the software for it. But the software is old and deprecated and not really supported anymore because it's from a company that went under years ago. So anyway, I found a Git repository, a GitHub repository that handles optimize cards. And we're streaming this to a Raspberry Pi right now. I'm super excited about it. I think it's really awesome. And it's really good quality. It was never meant to be played this way. In fact, I'm charging it with USB-C right now. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, all right, let's continue. Sorry, got a little off track there. Nick is a Hispanic gay incel MAGA who probably is into black dudes. Yeah. I think that he voted Trump all 3 times. So one could argue that he is MAGA, but he claims not to be. And I think he claims not to be MAGA because he wants to wield power over Donald Trump. That makes sense. He wants to kind of try to sway Trump's decision making. So he protests against him fairly often, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, I missed it.
Going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition.
Again, the same could be said about men. Men commit violent crimes at 8 to 900% the rate. 8 to 900% of women. So avoid men like the plague, right?
So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that
he believes it's a genetic problem with black people.
We have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be.
They are like every other person. Again, it's almost nobody that commits crimes. He's just creating an environment of fear for black people, or around black people. For no reason.
Colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things.
I don't think it's police brutality. No, it's not connected to that. And I doubt that they would say that. The problem is the conditions in the environment that led to their situation in the first place. People having a lack of resources, having a lack of generational wealth, not having any jobs in their neighborhood, being impoverished. Over-policing leads to people having a criminal record who otherwise wouldn't and don't deserve to, which leads to more difficulty getting jobs in the first place. And poverty, as we know, is the number one predecessor to crime, the number one indicator or whatever to crime. If you are impoverished, you are likelier to commit a crime. So if we want to stop crime, we stop poverty. But what's Nick Fuentes doing? Over-policing more intentionally, seemingly. Like, I don't know how else to interpret it, but that it's intentional.
Said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't.
Okay, that's just complete bullshit. It's been the same roughly whether you, all right, let me rephrase. It's been the same roughly no matter what. Like, if you steal, I think it's $500 worth of merchandise, it's a misdemeanor instead of a felony. But if you steal more than 500, it's a felony or something like that. What does that have to do with literally anything? I'm confused. How does that relate to anything at all? Again, if you want to stop crime, you fix poverty. But he doesn't want to do that. That's like, his solutions are not actually going to solve any of the problems, is the issue here.
Chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast, or whether you're on the Mag Mile, or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to
look, if he's making you uncomfortable and he's a little froggy, then walk the other way. Absolutely. But don't walk the other way because he's black. Because he's black. That's complete nonsensical bullshit. Dude is simply justifying racism because he doesn't fucking like black people. That's the bottom line here. And it's truly deeply disgusting. Does he do this with men as well? No, of course he doesn't. Because it's racism. And he admits that.
sit down.
Also, they said a minute ago, what was it? He said, they're trying to defund the police. No one is trying to, quote unquote, defund the police. People are trying to get social workers in to handle situations that social workers should handle, where police are the representation of force in society. And we don't have any reason to send police to a kindergarten to talk to a little kid who's being taken advantage of by her father. The police, the representation of force, should show up to the father's house, right? To arrest him. But the girl who's being taken advantage of should be talked to by a social worker, not by the representation of force. So people aren't advocating to get rid of police. They're advocating to defund police and replace a lot of them with social workers where it would be appropriate to have social workers doing the job. That's what defund the police was all about in the first place. And it's like, you know, he must know that, right? I don't know. It's hard to know if he actually knows that or if he's completely full of shit.
Because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a
Bro, what the hell's happening right now?
Robbery crew, and they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed.
And is that every black person?
As a white person.
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference?
That's interesting because antisocial violence, I mean, look, it's environmental either way you look at it, period. People don't have a genetic difference sufficient to create a result like that. They just don't. But this would kind of contribute to the idea that white people are inferior in Nick Fuentes' framework, right? Like black people, the gang violence can be easily explained by the environment, by the fact that there's poor education in their neighborhoods, that there are no good jobs, that they're over-policed and things like that. But what's the excuse in white neighborhoods? I don't know. That's interesting.
To the victims.
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And
what proportion?
I'm curious.
Please shut the fuck up, Nick.
Whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Wait, is my mic working?
What proportion? Should they avoid white people at school?
And also, I don't know what point he's making. What proportion? Is he saying that the vast majority of white people are not dangerous? Yeah, the vast majority of black people are also not dangerous, first of all. And second, fine, go with white men. Or just go with men as opposed to women. The proportion is off the charts. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that. And maybe you should consider that for other creators too.
People with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
What proportion of men compared to women? He's comparing things right now. It's not just a proportion. It's comparing to other proportions, obviously. What proportion of men compared to women commit violent crimes? It's off the charts disturbing. But of course, he's just going to completely ignore that.
Question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is
what I'm saying to you is by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
That's correct.
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools.
Wait, one more time.
Of black men have committed violent crimes. It's probably like 5%.
He literally just said it's probably 5%. Like earlier, he said it was 1 in 20. You cited that statistic and it was wrong. It was wrong then. And it's wrong now, of course. Oh my God. The stupid, it's 0.5% according to my research that I did here. And according to Piers Morgan, it's 0.1%. It depends on how you count it, I guess. But at its absolute highest, you couldn't possibly say it is any higher than 0.5%. You couldn't say that because it's nonsensical. That's just not true. It's not higher than that.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that those areas are going to be well funded by the city and taken care of course, because the city completely neglects those other neighborhoods, because the city ignores them until they think that they can make money from them. That's the problem here. I'm about to face off against the final boss in this game. Oh, that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated.
Wait, because school shootings around schools are not shootings, right? Of course, we're talking about people walking into a school with the gun and unloading. That's what that's in reference to. You're talking about a completely unrelated statistic. That's why it's not included in the statistic, obviously.
Associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of... No,
the proportion
again,
of the population.
are you hearing it? No.
So I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, okay, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator.
Again, like Nick Fuentes has already lied brazenly and blatantly in this whole thing. Like he fabricated numbers that are not true. So yeah, this whole thing is made up.
What's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No. Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's buying this. This argument lost. No one.
The argument didn't lose because you are directly incorrect. You are in contradiction to reality. Like none of this is true that he's laying down right now.
Is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery,
I mean, of course, it depends on the scenario, the situation. If you encounter a man in the park after dark, you are likely to become the victim of a crime. Yes, absolutely. A man, not a black man, but just like a man. He's setting up these very specific scenarios that only apply in these specific situations. Shit, I meant to blow the bomb. There we go. There we are. I beat the boss.
Mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference. And it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is,
again, like nobody has a problem with being on high alert in dangerous areas. That's not what anybody is complaining about. It's that women clutch their purses when they get in an elevator with a black person, any black person, in any scenario, for any reason whatsoever. It's that carries over to not just being in a dangerous situation and in a concerning environment or whatever and being very careful. That carries over to literally every black person that you come across. Every black person that you meet is now a dangerous criminal in your mind. That's the problem, obviously. And he wants to conflate things and twist it around to make you out to be the crazy one. Almost nobody is going to commit crimes, and he knows that.
The latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands.
Again, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Let me check. Where did he say?
Happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass?
Let's find out. Let's look this up. No need to wonder. Just loaded up our question gun. Let's go answer hunting. See if we can find some answers here. No, that's not true. No, it's about 2,000 per day at its height. He's inflating the figure by a factor of 4 times, roughly. So this is just a lie, of course.
Every day. It's in the thousands.
Okay, you said 10,000 every day. That is a far cry from what it actually is.
Happens all.
And by the way, Chicago's fucking gigantic, so obviously you're going to have that kind of thing. And is it all black people? Is that what you're saying? It's every single carjacking is black people doing it? And let me rephrase. All black people are carjacking? Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's what he's implying with this. All black people are carjackers. That's what he wants you to believe when he says this.
The time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological
No, I'm
position.
not. No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah.
And you know how you deal with that, right? Get rid of the guns. You ever knock that one around the old noggin?
It's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably...
No, that's not an assumption. He said that. Racism is hating someone because of the color of their skin, obviously.
We dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population. And I don't.
No, they're not. The black community is not a criminal population. There is criminality, and it's slightly disproportionate depending on the community, but not all black people are criminals. In fact, almost no black people are criminals.
Want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable. And I think even
Nick,
black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the
That's not an assumption. He literally said that.
purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
But you're the
Chinese,
product of an
Black people,
interracial
Hispanics.
marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
No, it's not debatable. What are you talking about? It's debatable. What the fuck do you mean it's debatable?
Let's say
Really?
for the sake of
Not
argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of
you're
argument,
literally
we
the
can
very
say
person
sure.
you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic. Of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
Race isn't real, of course. So Hispanic isn't a race in the same way that like Jewish isn't a race. These things just are not races. Races are not real. Ethnicities are real, but races are not real. And unfortunately, like it doesn't matter if race is real as it isn't. What matters at the end of the day is that, people believe that it's real. So we have to kind of contend with that one way or another. We have to accept that people believe it's real, and we have to handle it as though it is real, but it isn't.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous
It's
Americans
not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a one
really.
drop
You just
rule
keep
thing
saying you
going.
only want to live in
Kind
a
of.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
and I
got
live in
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing.
Do you have any
As I was saying-
non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white.
I bet.
Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many
because
are
they respect
black?
the honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Yay being one
Yeah.
who you know. Sneeko
Oh yeah, he's a Nazi. Sneeko's also a Nazi. Yeah.
being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually
Wait, did they cut something out just now?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a
They did. They cut something out. Damn, I wish I knew what Ye said. Or Kanye. I refuse to use his new name because I believe it's his attempt to escape accountability for, trying to protect his brand from the bad behavior and the fucked up things that he's said. And I refuse to allow him to get away with that. But anyway, damn, they cut out what he said. That's a shame.
Place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how
Race realism. Yeah, totally.
the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real.
You know what's even worse than Nick Fuentes? Going to his Rumble and read the comments on his videos. Lol, hi Owen. Hey, welcome Eric Wander. Did you change your name? I feel like you changed your name and profile picture. Interesting. Let me see. Hold on. W. Nick, boomers are the most obedient puppet of the Jew. Wow. Per capita, world Jewry. Piers Morgan is not a smart person. Holy shit, Piers is Arsler. Nick with a trolling masterpiece AF. Can't believe people think Piers is in any way competent. Piers is a disgrace to the UK. Smashed his British ass. Weighing half? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Did I just say a slur? Best part was at the end when Piers wanted to be praised for his interview being so different, and Nick said, actually, no, I've been doing interviews like this with clips from my videos and background for 10 years, so it's nothing special, to be honest. Boom, Piers fell silent, haha. Well, we'll get there. I got 3 sons that are compassionate, and Nick, they sound like girls, ha 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 ha. 117. I guess we haven't reached that point yet. Where are we? Nope, we're at 45 still. I'm a black man, and I pulled my pants up to watch this. Wow. Now keep them up and act right. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. The dreadlocked man. That is insane. A Catholic attacking a fellow Catholic for being a virgin is crazy. That should say it all. I shut down the gas chambers to watch this. 1 in 850,000 white people are school shooters. Can't believe Piers denies that 12 million Jews died in the Holocaust. What? What a disgusting anti-Semite. Never forget the 24 million. What? Oh, he's saying Okay, the number keeps going up. He's saying that that's a fake number. Disgusting. It was 12 million people, but 6 million Jews specifically were exterminated, like intentionally exterminated or whatever. 6 million Jews. So when people say 12 million people died, they think that the number is inflating when it's not. It's not inflating. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. Just disturbing shit for real.